Happy day wherever you are. I've been doing some thinking. Some people would say that's dangerous when I get to thinking, but I'm one of those deep thinking people. I can't help it. It's just part of my nature. You know, you taxi down the runway, soar off into the wild blue yonder, and head off to wherever you're going. And as long as things go really well, as long as there's no problem with the instruments, it's clear blue sky, you're not about to run into Harrison Ford or something like that, you sail out over the countryside, get way up there in the air, and you're headed toward where you're going, and you start thinking about everything in the world. That's me. I get up there and I'm alone with my thoughts, and a lot of truckers are that way too. You know, as long as things are going well, they're cruising down the highway, they start thinking about everything in the world too. A lot of people may not think that truck drivers are actually deep thinkers, but a lot of them are. You'd be surprised who's out there driving trucks. There are people who are properly called doctor who are driving trucks, and they're also flying planes as well. But I've been doing a little thinking last night and today in particular about how people a lot of times experience hurts and have bad experiences early in their life, and those experiences still depress them and affect them years later. This happens with the holidays a lot of times. I've heard this so many times, and the interesting thing is I've heard it from one Episcopal priest and another ordained Protestant minister, and they're supposed to be people who are really into the holiday season, explaining it and facilitating celebrations and talking about what it's all about. And they would talk about how when they were younger, they had problematic family situations and didn't have a lot of good Christmases, so to speak. And so even now, years later, that is affecting them, and they get kind of depressed in the holiday season. Well, I'll tell you something. When I was younger, I didn't have a lot of good ones either. Now, that's a long story. There's a lot of explanation to it, but holidays weren't always the best time for me when I was a lot younger. But you know, that's all changed now, because you find ways to move forward. And then, though I didn't have a lot of them good ones when I was younger, I've had 20 plus really good Christmas seasons now. I don't let that past affect me. I just enjoy life now, and that is true with so many things. You know, people go through a lot of problems in their life, and this thing about things happening to people when they're young and it still has a negative impact years later, I think people really should be able to move forward and have good lives in spite of those things, because there are certain hardships that we're all going to experience in life. And some of the hurts that are caused to people when they're younger is that people rejected them, did not accept them, dumped them, broke up with them, or they weren't particularly popular, and that hurt them. And years later, well into adulthood, they're still struggling with their feelings over that. Well, I've got some news for you. You can be a perfectly fine person, and people are still going to hurt you. I wish that wasn't true. You know, it's very painful to be hurt by other people. It's very painful to feel that you've been rejected. It's very painful to be dumped, as a lot of people go through that in their lives. But you know what? That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. You can be a perfectly fine person, and people are still going to hurt you, because that is the nature of human beings. And it doesn't necessarily mean that there's anything wrong with you. There might, in fact, be something wrong with them. In fact, there probably is. If you're a good person and they're rejecting you, there's probably something wrong with them and not necessarily you. Sometimes, you know, and it happens a lot in school years, in high school and college, and maybe some early work experiences. People go through this thing of wanting to be popular. Now, everybody wants to be liked. You know, I think most everybody wants to be liked, but a lot of people feel that popular people who are super popular just have everything, and they wish that they could have that too, and they don't necessarily have it. And so they get older, and then they're still depressed and angry sometimes about things that happened when they're younger. They didn't get on the cheerleading squad, or they didn't get the best dates for the prom or whatever, or they got dumped maybe repeatedly, and actually there's nothing wrong with them. There might be something wrong with the people who did it. I mean, really, there is a downside to popularity, and this is very important. I want you to listen to this. Whoever you are, I want you to listen to this. There is a downside to popularity, and it's summed up in this little saying that I saw on a sign somewhere, and this is so true. It said that prosperity attracts friends, adversity reveals them. You think about that for a minute. Think that one through. Prosperity attracts friends, adversity reveals them. So here's the downside to popularity. And that's just the fact that it's very, very shallow a lot of time. The most popular people at work or school or church or wherever it is, it may seem like they have it all, but popularity a lot of times is very, very shallow. It simply doesn't run very deep. And popular people, sometimes they are shocked to find if they hit a rough patch and things go bad for them for a while. Yeah, people may rally to their side for a while, but you know, if you're going through a bad time, it could be being unemployed for a long time. It could be a significant illness that goes on for a long time. People kind of get tired of it. And adversity tends to drive people away. And I've seen that a lot of times in life. But there are always, a lot of times, at least if you're fortunate, there are always a few people who are, and it doesn't matter whether they're related to you or not. I mean, hell, you can have a lousy family and still have people that are even closer to you than them. That certainly has been true with me. But you may find there's just this very small group, maybe one or two, who will stick with you no matter what. You know what? Those are your real friends. Those are the people who actually count. My longtime best friend and I go back, almost back to childhood. We kind of grew up together. And a matter of fact, there was a period of time in my life when I actually got kicked out of my house and I moved in with these people. His family situation was bad too, but you know what? We became very close. And I think that was part of it. And we're still close yet today. And I can't tell you the number of times that I've gone down to Western Union to wire him money when he got in trouble. He's done the same for me many times. There's no telling how much money has exchanged hands between us over the years. And nobody keeps score because it's not about that. It's just about friendship. It's just about, you know, we know what the other one's going through and we want to help because that's our friend. And the way it's always been with us for years and years and years and years and years, I mean, this goes back a hellaciously long time, is that my place is always his place is kind of always mine. You need a roof under your head, just come on. Just come on. You know, doors always open. As a matter of fact, when I lived in Bessemer, Alabama for a while, and we worked for the same company. He worked in Jackson, Tennessee, and that's where he lived. And I lived in Bessemer, Alabama. And he had lived in the Bessemer area before, but got transferred and promoted to Jackson, Tennessee. And he would still need to come to the Birmingham area from time to time for different reasons, you know. But, you know, this is my closest friend. He got a key to my place because my place was always open. And, you know, it's just that very close relationship. Now, that is a friend. There have been times when he'd give me $100 and I'd give him $100 or whatever. I've turned his power on and we've done a lot of things for each other over the years. Now that is a friend. Your friends are not the people who like you when things are going well and then desert you when things are going bad. We tend to use that word friend really loosely sometimes, especially on Facebook. What most people are on Facebook actually are contacts or perhaps acquaintances, so we use that term very loosely, and I guess I have no problem with that as long as, you know, people are not hostile. But most people that we call friends in our lives are just kind of acquaintances, and that's kind of how that is. Your real friends are the people who are going to stick with you no matter what. And so when you look at it that way, and it may take some experience for people who have never experienced it before to get to that point, when you look at it that way, then popularity is not all that it's cracked up to be, is it? Another thing, as I said, you can be a perfectly fine person with a lot of good attributes and a lot to offer, and people are still going to hurt you. They're still going to reject you, but you know what? You can move on from that and have a good life. You know, you enjoy the people who are really there for you, who are really there with you. Don't worry so much about others. You know, you can have a lot of bad experiences in your life, but you can build on those and still have a great life, still live a good life. And there's so many people who just don't seem to get that. You are going to be rejected. You are going to be not accepted by some people. Now, as far as this acceptance or rejection, we have to be honest with ourselves about the kind of people that we are. We have to understand our shortcomings, but at the same time, you shouldn't down yourself unreasonably. Now, as far as being honest with ourselves and others, I'd like to mention one thing: American Idol and also X Factor. So many times you'd see these people who would go and audition, and they believed that they were fantastic, because that's what people told them. They gave them false encouragement in an area where they shouldn't have been encouraged. And so they go in front of these judges and they get decimated and they just dissolve into tears. You know, it's like it's ruined their whole life, and that happened because people encouraged them falsely. Well, that's not a very good thing to do to anybody. You should be honest with people. There's a difference between honest evaluation, of course, and just total rejection. People sometimes get down on themselves when they shouldn't. There was a young man I used to work with, and it was our job to give speeches on health care. And the first time we did this, we went to this hospital and spoke to an audience of 50 or 60 people, and it was his first time doing anything like that. And afterward, he just felt so bad. Felt terrible because he thought he did such an awful job. And I said, "What's the problem? You did fine. I was there. There was no problem. There's nothing wrong with you. You did a great job." And his confidence got built up, but for some reason he was just downing himself. And people do that a lot. You know, I don't understand why that happens. I know we do need to be honest about ourselves and understand our shortcomings and our abilities, but people get down on themselves when they shouldn't. You know, people worry about their looks. And the strange thing is, a lot of people who worry so much about their looks and think that they're not very good looking, they actually are pretty good looking. I mean, it's funny how that happened, and it's great that they're not vain about it, but at the same time, they shouldn't get so down on themselves. I've seen people do that before. So, you know, self-esteem is a good thing. You should have that. You're probably a very good person with a lot to offer, and you shouldn't down yourself unreasonably. And you shouldn't let the fact that people hurt you get you down too much, because that's the nature of people. They are going to do that. But in spite of the hurts and the problems that you experience in your life, you can move on from that. You can make that better. You know, try to be a good person. Don't just try to be a popular person. Try to be a good person. That's far more important. It really is. And don't worry so much about past hurts and past problems, because they're kind of universal. They do happen to everybody. I've said it, I think, twice before, and I'll say it, you can be a very fine person and people will still hurt you. But you know what? That's happened to me plenty of times, and it happens to other people too. So don't let that depress you, discourage you, get you down. You can still move forward and have a good life, and a lot of that has to do with being a good person. Well, you know, I could talk a lot more about this today, but this is getting a little bit long. But I'll say this: recognize who your real friends are. Be a real friend. Understand that popularity isn't everything. Understand that no matter how good a person you are, you're going to be hurt by other people, but you're still a good person with a lot to offer. You really are. At least I hope you are. I hope I'm speaking to the right people. So don't let that discourage you and get you down. You can have a good life in spite of the fact that bad, negative things happened to you in the past and people hurt you. You can still have a very good life. So don't get down by the fact that people hurt you, reject you, don't accept you. They might not, but others will, and that doesn't detract from your value as a person at one iota. I hope somebody out there has found this a little bit encouraging today, and I hope that you just have a wonderful day.